Welcome back to my channel. This is Fran Talks Facts. Today we're breaking down Cuba's severe energy crisis and the quiet talks now happening between Cuba and the United States. Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel has finally confirmed what many people suspected. Cuba recently held talks with the U.S. government. He said these talks were aimed at solving problems between the two countries through dialogue. He said international factors helped make these exchanges possible, but he did not explain what these factors were. The White House has not given any details or confirmed much about these talks, but we do know that top U.S. officials have been meeting with people close to Cuba's leadership. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio secretly met with Raul Castro's grandson, Raul Guillermo Rodriguez Castro. This happened on the sidelines of a Caribbean leadership meeting in St. Kitts and Nevis. At the time, Rubio refused to say who he was talking to in or near the Cuban government. He said only that the U.S. is always willing to talk with officials of other governments who have information or views to share. While these talks are happening, Cuba is facing a serious energy emergency. Diaz-Canel said no petroleum shipments have arrived in Cuba for the past 3 months. He blames this on what he calls a U.S. energy blockade. Because of this, Cuba is trying to run the country using natural gas, solar power, and old thermoelectric plants. Fuel oil and diesel are running out, and 2 power plants had to shut down. This has also limited power generations from solar parks because the whole system is too weak. Last week, Western Cuba was hit by massive blackouts. Millions of people were left without electricity. Cuba produces about 40% of its own petroleum, but that isn't enough to meet the country's energy demands. The energy crisis has affected almost every part of daily life. The president said communication, education, and transportation are all suffering. Hospitals have had to postpone tens of thousands of surgeries because they don't have stable power. Diaz-Canel said the impact is tremendous. To adapt, 115 bakeries have switched to using firewood or coal instead of fuel. The government has installed 955 solar panels for rural homes and social centers. He also said more solar systems will be added before the end of March. These new systems are supposed to add around 100 megawatts to Cuba's weak power grid. Even with all these changes, the president admitted we still need oil. He also said production in the country has dropped. He made it clear that without energy, no country can produce at normal levels. Because of this, Cuba has had to make changes to jobs and employment to adjust. Last month, Cuba introduced a strict fuel saving measure across the country. Many Cubans watched the president's speech closely on TV. Some people cheered when they heard about talks with the United States. One man, Elvis Hernandez, 62, said Cubans are desperate. He said people do not live without water or electricity. He said he hopes talks will be productive and bring real results. His message was clear. If they are talks, they should achieve something good for the people. Another man, Miguel, 65, said that if these talks lead to agreements that improve daily life, then that will be very welcome. He said life in Cuba right now is extreme. Diaz-Canel explained the purpose of the talks in more detail. He said the goal is to identify serious problems between the two countries and find a solution. He said the talks are meant to see whether both sides are willing to take concrete actions. Those actions should benefit both Cuba and the United States. Another goal is to find areas where the two nations can cooperate. This includes dealing with common threats and keeping peace in the region. Cuba said it's ready to continue this process only based on equality and respect. They want respect for each country's political system and for Cuba's sovereignty and self-determination. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum called the dialogue essential. She said she has always supported talks between Cuba and the U.S. When asked if Mexico helped start these talks, she gave a careful answer. She said Mexico has promoted dialogue both with the U.S. and Cuban authorities. She also said Mexico is looking at ways to send oil to Cuba. She promised that Mexico will continue to support the Cuban people in every way possible. Cuba's problems with oil got worse after the U.S. attacked Venezuela and arrested the then president, Nicolás Maduro. Critical oil shipments from Venezuela to Cuba stopped after that. Since then, Donald Trump and his team has warned Cuba it could face similar pressure. He said Cuba has no money, no oil, and a bad system that has failed for some time. He pointed out that Cuba used to get money and oil from Venezuela, and that support now is gone. Trump recently said Cuba is at the end of the line and expects big changes there soon. Cuba's aging power plants are also part of the problem. Some of these thermoelectric plants are more than 30 years old and rarely get proper maintenance. U.S. sanctions make it hard for Cuba to buy new equipment or specialized parts. The latest big blackout was blamed on a broken boiler that shut down much of the power grid. Cuba is doing prison releases as a goodwill gesture. Diaz-Canel spoke just one day after Cuba's foreign ministry announced the government will free 51 prisoners in what they call a gesture of goodwill and close relations with the Vatican. The president said this is a sovereign decision by Cuba. He said no one forced them to do it, and it reflects Cuba's humanistic values. So right now, Cuba's caught in a deep energy crisis with blackouts, fuel shortages, and hospitals struggling. At the same time, quiet talks with the United States and support from Mexico can possibly open up a new chapter. Do you think these talks will improve life for ordinary Cubans? Or will politics get in the way again? This reporting was according to PBS News. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more world updates, and this will also allow my channel to grow.